Frankfurt, where the European Central Bank is based. Many are anxiously anticipating these EU elections. How risky is this strengthening of separatist forces in Spain?
You know, Karina, this is really a bit of a two-edged sword. On the one hand, the separatists in Catalonia have always expressed how pro-European they are. That if they got a referendum, a legal referendum in Catalonia, if they even got a majority in favor of separating from Spain, the first thing they would do would be to apply for membership of the European Union. On the other hand, of course, in the rest of Europe, this separatist vote in Spain is perceived to also be a populist vote, a vote by people who want to disrupt things, who want to change the way how, their country and also the European Union as a whole is governed. And that's why, of course, this shift towards separatism in Spain is also making many people in the European establishment nervous, also here in Frankfurt, in Germany's financial centre and one of Europe's financial centres.
Meanwhile, Germany's private banks are calling for a pro-Europe vote. Which banks are we talking about, and what exactly are they saying?
Well, among those banks are Deutsche Bank, Commerzbank, UniCredit, JP Morgan, also a few smaller ones which might not be that well known in Australia, but which are very renowned. For example, the small Frankfurt private bank von Metzler. Together with the Association of Private Banks here in Germany, they have come out with a statement urging voters to go to the election and not to vote for protectionist and populist parties. They are saying that in the future we will need more Europe, not less, if we want to tackle, the big questions like climate change, globalization, digitization, migration, etc. And now this statement, it really has to be said, is a first. Usually the banks are very reluctant to give endorsements for particular political ideas. And also I think it's worth mentioning that in the past the banks have been among the ones to criticize the European Union a lot, also the currency union. The banks here in Germany in particular are constantly complaining about the European Central Bank and its monetary policy. They're complaining about too much regulation. But here, this statement shows not only that it's worth taking a different look at Europe, but also that obviously those people in the top floors of the skyscrapers of the banks are very nervous.
So how likely is it that voters in Germany will take that advice from the banks?
Very good question, Karina. Of course, if you talk to people in the streets, also here in Frankfurt, where many people, work for banks, the reputation of the banks is not very high, given that some of them had to be bailed out after the financial crisis, and given, that the financial crisis brought about how much malpractice there had been before the financial crisis, leading to it. Look at Deutsche Bank, all the fines it had to pay. So it's quite possible that some of those voters out there will think, now that the banks are saying vote pro-Europe, I will vote against. But I think it's also worth mentioning that the banks are not the only corporations to speak out in favor of Europe. Recently, in our program, Deutsche Welle, the CEO of Deutsche Post said that he really wants his employees to vote pro-Europe because, well, not only his company, our economy as a whole is so much depending on global trade, and Germany is among the countries that profited most from the Union and also from the euro as our common currency.
Okay, we'll find out the results of those elections in a few weeks' time. Deutsche Welle correspondent Conrad Bussen in Frankfurt, thank you. Former Australian cricket captain Steve Smith has returned to national duty alongside David Warner in a World Cup practice match in Brisbane.